What's one of the best roles you've ever had and why?
One of the best roles I ever had wasn't actually my day job. So when I was quite early in my career, I did quite a lot in the diversity space from an employee resource group point of view. But I was hosting an event and got along the global chair of a network at HSBC for gender, which is called Balance. One of her UK team reached out afterwards to ask me to get involved. And I was very clear, I do not have capacity to run anything, but I'm happy to be involved. And a week later, she asked me to step in as chair. And genuinely, even though I'd said to her I didn't have capacity, probably one of the best things I did. It gave me access to this amazing community of men and women. It taught me loads. It gave me a network I couldn't have believed. And I went from being UK chair to Europe chair to global chair and growing it as a community. And it also really helped my career because actually it gave me access to lots of senior and executive leaders I wouldn't have had access to anyway if I hadn't done it.
What's one decision you've made that helped align your work with your own values?
To demand, including some of the stuff that was in my values in my job. So when I worked with small businesses on strategy in one of my previous roles, I really recognised that there was an impact on women founders that we weren't recognising in our wider strategy. And so I basically demanded that we did more in this space and launched a number of programs around the world that made a difference to the female founders of the world. And I think unless you step up and go, this is really important to me, I want to do this as part of my job, some of that stuff never happens. And if you wait to ask permission or for someone to offer to you, again, it doesn't happen. So really pushing myself out there and going, this is important, it will make a difference, and being in a position to do that really helped align my day job, my passion, and actually being better at my day job.
What's the biggest thing you've done to create or improve social impact?
And I've done lots of things over my career with the purpose of impact, from some of the female client programs that I've run, from the work that I did in an employee resource group looking at gender. This might be recency bias, but I think one of the biggest things that I've done that creates impact potentially is something I've done recently. And I don't really know what the impact is yet, but I have decided to start a campaign called Women Are Good Business. So the aim of the campaign is to get people to amplify the name of a female founder who's really smashing it, so that we change the conversation from being how hard it is to be a woman running a business to how amazing the women are who run them. And I think that might be my biggest impact if I can get the traction to actually make the difference we want it to make. Women Are Good Business. And I'm a banker, so I like a stat. So I'm going to give you some stats. We are 51% of the population. We're 58% of graduates. We control 60% of the assets in the world. We also make 90% of consumer decisions, but in the UK, we only run 19% of businesses. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. But when you look at the businesses that we run, actually, we're really good at running businesses. Women are really good business. We are 71% less likely to go bankrupt or into insolvency. We return 63% better return on investment, and we're significantly less likely to default on debt. All of these tell us that women are really good at running businesses, but we're completely underestimated. And it's something that I am on a mission to change.
Can you share some key milestones or proudest moments in your career?
I'll, I'll give you a couple of milestones and then a couple of proud moments. I've got two milestones, which are quite sad milestones, but the behaviour of the people around me made them less. So I lost my mum in my 20s and my husband in my 40s. I would not be who I am today if the people around me hadn't really supported me, especially from a career perspective. In my 20s, I actually handed in my notice to go home to look after my dad and my family. And my boss said, you tell me where you need to work and I will find a way to make it work. And she did, which meant I kept my career. And in my 40s, I had to step away from a really big job in order to grieve. And actually, my team stepped up and my boss stepped up, and they carried on running the business that I was a senior leader in to make it possible for me to go away and grieve and come back and still have a career. So those are two massive milestones for me. And they're probably also, especially the second one of my proudest moments, because my team really stepped up and they were really there for me and for the rest of the team. So those are probably the biggest milestones in my career that have really taught me that who you are and the people you put around you are a really big part in how successful you are.
What's one project or piece of work that taught you a big lesson about impact, and what did you take from it?
The biggest project or piece of work that I've done that's taught me about impact, interestingly, is probably leaving my big corporate job and starting out on my own, which might have recency bias because it's only just happened. But what I've realised is that everything I've done to this point has created my impact. And starting out on my own, doing something that really, really matters to me and I think has impact going forward, what I have realised is all of the things I've done before, all of the way I've treated people before, the network I've created, the times I've paid it forward without really thinking about it, it's all come home to roost. So the biggest impact I can have, I don't think I've had yet. I think the projects that I've done over my life, the things I've done because I wanted to step up and be counted, have now come home in a really positive way to roost, because now I have a tribe of people behind me who are really willing to lean in and help me. And that's both from a corporate perspective, from a friend's perspective, and just a wider network I've built around the world. And it's made me realize that your impact is never one single thing. If you do what you believe is right over the long term, that will always come back to help you. And then that leads you to your bigger impact. And I do genuinely believe I'm still to have the biggest impact I can have.
What's a piece of strategic advice you found yourself giving more than once?
Giving advice is really interesting because I think sometimes it says more about the person giving the advice than it does the person either asking or not asking for the advice. I think the piece of advice I give most is to do what makes you feel joy. And I'll actually tell you something that someone else gave me, which I now give to other people, which is balance money and joy. Because joy alone isn't going to pay the mortgage. Money alone is going to make you miserable. But if you can find a way to do something that gives you purpose and joy and earns you enough money that you're not worried about money and you can achieve everything you want to, then that's the absolutely perfect thing to be spending your time and life doing.
What's one learning from delivering work at scale you think others should know?
I think my biggest learning of delivering at scale is people have to want to follow you, or at least follow what it is you're trying to achieve. So having delivered programs around the world with thousands and thousands of people involved, the only way you can do that is if people believe in what you're trying to do. And so getting that messaging right and being consistent with it and keeping to it and getting other people on board so they're telling the same message and they believe it and being consistent with it is the best way of getting delivery. And if you flip that on its head, the quickest way for delivery to fail is if the people who are actually doing the delivery versus the people setting the strategy, if they don't believe in it, they're very unlikely to make a really, really big effort to deliver it.
Who or what inspires your approach to creating impact through your work?
I genuinely think impact comes from yourself as opposed to other people. So I've worked with lots of people who've truly inspired me. I've interviewed people for my podcast that, my God, their journeys and their stories really inspire me. But I'm a great believer in you have to work out who you are and what's important to you to have the biggest impact. So although there are lots of people who have inspired me generally to take the leap out of corporate life, to run a business, to start a podcast, to really stand up for what I believe in, I think actually your impact journey starts with you rather than with somebody else.
What is the thing that brings you the most work joy?
The thing that brings me the most work joy is connecting other people to interesting other people and seeing them thrive. It's not always very good for the bank balance in terms of running a business, but it's incredibly satisfying. And I'm a great believer in what you put out in the world comes back. So it will all sort itself in the end. But if you think about the impact you have just by doing the right thing or connecting someone to someone else who'd be really interesting or useful to them, that brings me genuine joy.
What's your favourite quote that you'd like us to include and why?
I live by 2 quotes, and I actually have them on little wooden plaques hanging on my wardrobe door. One is, love many, trust few, always paddle your own canoe. Because it's about making sure you are independent and savvy enough to get what you want, but that you open your heart up to love, whether that be romantic love or friendship or loving what you do. The other one is, you are what you do every day. And the reason I live by this is you can think about and imagine what you want to be. Say you want to get fit and be able to run a 5K. You can think about that every day and not get any fitter. But if you run half a mile every day or every other day, you will get fit enough to run more. So those are my 2. So love many, trust few, always paddle your own canoe, and you are what you do every day.